The views expressed and the opinions given by their guests do not necessarily reflect those of the Odyssey Files hosts, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
This is Susan Slaughter from Paranormal Caught on Camera, introducing you to the most epic show ever, The Odyssey Files with David Soyering and Michael O'Neill. You're welcome. Pew, 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 pew.
Oh!
Kim, what are you doing?
Well, I'm telling Mike and Dave, it's time to get on the show.
Oh, well, the Odyssey Files starts now.
Good evening, paranormal community. It is 7 o'clock here on a Monday, which means you must be watching, because that's the only way to do it right now, the Odyssey Files here on StreamYard. I'm your host, Michael O'Neill. As always, is my co-host, who is with me, Mr. David Starry. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Paranormal Universe. Good evening, Mike. Good evening to all the future listeners that aren't listening tonight. Shame on you.
Well, I mean, they're just not watching us, which
True.
Honestly,
True.
I honestly cannot blame them for not wanting to for wanting to not watch us, I guess.
Why is that? Why would you say that?
Maybe they don't like our mugs.
Please. What kind of ridiculousness is that?
I mean, I guess what you could do is, if you have a laptop, start the show and then like fold it down a little bit. So no? All right, fine.
All right, look, we're above average. We're definitely not sitting at the top of the echelon when it comes to beauty, but we are certainly not in the bottom half of the stack either. So I'm gonna put us comfortably in the 70th percentile. Okay.
All right.
Better than, like, above average, not stunning, but certainly easy to look at.
Sexy-ish.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
With a little work, right? A little grooming, maybe a little sexier. I mean, who knows, right? I guess I could have tidied myself up a bit today.
You could have, but that's all right.
But I didn't. I will for next week. I'll make it nicer, like I actually give a shit.
Or I could wear like a suit and tie or something like that instead of my sleeveless shirt that I have on.
Or just a shirt with sleeves on it instead of the wife beater shirt. So
this isn't a wife beater.
It's like an updated wife beater.
What? That's a horrible thing to say.
That's
it. I'm sorry, but I spend 10 hours a day out in the heat. I deserve to get to wear a sleeveless shirt. I believe it says that in the Bible.
Yeah, Jesus saith, "Thou must wear a sleeveless shirt when it's hot outside."
Exactly.
I've read it hundreds of times.
Exactly.
It's in there.
It's Psalm 146.
It's in there.
So there you go. And I know for some of you out there who are checking that out and you're saying, Mike, that's not what that Psalm 146 says. Well, you're just reading the wrong Bible. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So we got a great show for everybody. Again, this week, we have another batch of listener stories, which I've read half of one. So you're going to get... Oh, plus we still had the two from last week, which we wanted to do and have not done. So we're actually going to go back.
I gotta find those actually.
Yeah, I still have mine. So I just thought of that as I was saying this sentence. So you're not far off. But during the second hour, this was actually the topic that we were going to be hitting tonight was actually sent in by a new listener who brought this new kind of cryptid to both Dave and my attention. And I never heard of it before, even though there have been a lot of sightings here in Minnesota, especially especially in the last couple of years. So we're really interested in doing that. I want to thank Brendan Johnson for getting it. He has actually had an encounter with this new cryptid called the Pale Crawler, and we were hoping to get him on to tell us about his encounter, and we still might at some point in time, just not tonight.
Not tonight.
Considering
right,
and considering I gave him like a 24-hour notice,
right.
You know, my bad. It's my fault. My apologies. I do hope he did give me a little bit of like a summary of kind of what he encountered, so I'll be reading that, and then I have reached out to him today to see if he has time to actually send in his full encounter for us to read. If not, we'll have him on to do it as a big thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah, or I was thinking, if because his work schedule totally conflicts our show schedule, that we could find a time when he's available on a different night and just pre-record him and then just kind of insert his story, even if it's a couple episodes down the road. Just, we could reflect back upon this episode and get his personal experience story.
Exactly.
Totally good with that. So
we'll get it done. That's what
Yep.
we're trying to say. We'll get it done. But yeah. So anyway,
Pale Crawler.
Like I said, I never heard of this before, so it did a little bit of research, obviously, with you, and then for the show here tonight. So looking forward to talking about it, along with maybe some other closely related cryptids.
Exactly.
So, all righty. What do you say we hop right into last week's stories?
Perfect.
Now I got it. There we go. I actually didn't even have it up. So,
be number 6, right?
Yeah, which means that's
we ended with Myrtle's Plantation. So, okay.
That is correct.
All right. So has anyone else noticed a guiding force? I feel this constant feeling of what I'm supposed to do, what I'm supposed to say, and how I'm supposed to do it. It could be anything from picking up my phone at a certain time to doing something like going to a certain place or talking to certain people. When I follow what I'm supposed to do, things always work out and there aren't any bad consequences. However, when I do something else, everything seems to go to shit. It's way beyond some gut feeling, and it has nothing to do with morality. Do either of you experience it? What exactly is it? Okay. It's a good question.
Very good. Very good question. I like this one.
I do too. I totally believe that everything happens for a reason. And I'm sure that there's a very large segment of people who believe that that you're in control of your destiny and that you're in control of everything that happens in your life and stuff like that. I had jumped back and forth between believing that and then kind of believing that it's predestined for a while when I was younger. And as I've grown older and gone through a bunch of life changes and stuff like that, I thoroughly believe now that that things are kind of predestined. So predestined to me would be what this person's referring to as a guiding force. And this guiding force is kind of this is what is taking you down the path that you're supposed to be on. So when they're doing things that are taking them down that path, things are going well for them. When they try to veer off of the path, things, as this person said, when they try to do something else or veer off of the path that they're supposed to be on, everything goes to shit. And that kind of seems to be the truth as far as how it is in my life as well. For them to say it goes way beyond a gut feeling, I think that gut feelings are tremendously important. I think that gut feelings are, if you trust I can tell you this for a fact, if you trust your gut, if you're going into a situation that you're unsure of and you trust your gut, I would say 99% of the time your gut is going to be correct. And I have experienced that hundreds, if not thousands of times in the course of my life. So have my kids, and they come back and they tell me stories about stuff like that all the time when we get together. And they'll be like, Dad, remember when you used to say, like, you'd walk into a situation and your spidey senses would tingle, because that's what I always said. I refer to it as my spidey senses. And they're like, your spidey senses would tingle and you would just know to be on alert because something just doesn't quite feel right. And, they would say, and I walked into so-and-so's house and we went downstairs and we were going to hang out. And all of a sudden I felt this really uncomfortable, like I need to not be here moment, and so they left and everything was fine. And had they stayed, something bad would have happened, I think, or something that might have affected them in a negative way would have happened. So I totally believe in that. I totally believe that is our inner, if you want to say inner guiding angels, guardian angels, life force guiding us, whatever the case, whatever you want to refer to it as. I think that is exactly what is going on. So yes, I do experience it. That is my best answer at exactly what it is. It's your guiding life force that's moving you forward on the path that you're supposed to be on this time around. Is probably the best way I can sum that up.
Yeah. I always called it my lifeline. But I have numerous times, and I've talked about it on the show, I call them psychic dreams or whatever, but, they're dreams that I have that make absolutely no sense to me. I don't know at all where I am. I don't know at all any of the people. And then 5 years later, all of a sudden you have that deja vu moment where you go back to this dream you haven't thought of in 5 years. And all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, here I am. I always take comfort when that happens because it's kind of, I guess, a reaffirming that I'm where I'm supposed to be. This was the path that was laid out before me. And whereas maybe a few things have changed, or maybe other people have veered off theirs, and that's why they're not where they should be from what I saw previously. But the general form of it is exactly the way I saw it previously. I often have, especially recently, or more recently, I should say, in the last couple of years, it's gotten far more prevalent where something will either seem off, something will show up as either I have to do this or something is wrong, or I don't have all the facts, and I'm still fighting it. I still am like, nah, this isn't right. Or I'm wrong type of thing. I'm missing something, or I'm just being paranoid, or I'm over analyzing. And then sure as shit, I end up being right. And I'm just like, I should have had this way before, but should have trusted the gut, should have trusted what the mind was telling me. And I didn't, because I didn't. Honestly, it's because I just don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it. I don't want to accept it. It's usually something that is negative towards me. I'm like, no, that's not right. Or if I do this, that'll change what this supposedly is supposed to be. And that never works out. And I think that's what she's talking about in her story, is when you try to fight that, when you try to change stuff, when you try to manipulate it to work in your favor, it doesn't work out. And I've had to learn that lesson the hard way many, 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 many times. And I still haven't learned it, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better at listening to it. I'm getting better at understanding what it is. just to give a brief example, there was, I don't want to say an encounter, but there was a day where a friend of mine really wanted something, but could not afford it. Like, as soon as everything in my entire being was like, get this for them, and I was like, okay, I will. And I even went to work the next day and completely forgot about it. And when I was going to, go and get it, and then halfway on the home, not even thinking about it, boom, it was back in my head. Like, you were supposed to go and do this. I'm like, oh shit. And actually turned my vehicle the complete opposite direction to go and fulfill that. So, I mean, I get what this person is saying. I definitely think that it is out there, that there are certain things that we are supposed to do, whether to help ourselves or whether to help other people. And I just think a lot of people, especially if it's to help others, fight it. And because either they don't want to do it, or they don't understand it, or what, I don't know. But it's getting more pushy. It's getting pushier. And it's
the older you get, the pushier it gets. I'll just tell you that. So
yeah. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And like you, Dave, I have had the mentality in my head that if it's meant to be, it will be.
Right.
Doesn't mean I can't help it along the way. Maybe.
I agree. I do too. Right. I do too.
That's typically when shit goes wrong.
Right.
Because that's impatience. It's selfishness. It's impatience. It's, I want this now. And I consider myself a pretty patient person when it comes to most things, but there are certain things where I'm like, no, I want it.
Right.
So still learning. So, but yes. And I can't believe I went through that entire answer and did not make one reference to being a Jedi.
I can't either.
I'm evolving, Dave.
You are evolving. That was my line, but I'll give it to you anyway. I was going to say you're on your evolutionary climb up the ladder is moving nicely.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
But yeah, this, do either of you experience it? I think both of us experience it. What
Absolutely.
exactly is it? What exactly is it? I think that's just your soul, your energy being more in sync with what the universe needs from you. I guess is the only way that I can describe it.
If we think about it, right, if we're reborn, okay, so we live a life, we pass, we get put back into the pool of souls, right? That pool of souls is this big, gigantic, beautiful, kind of giant cocktail of souls that are all hanging out together, just beautiful lights, we're all hanging out together. It's a big, peaceful moment. We're just all waiting for our rebirth because we have to come back because we didn't do something right the first time, or there was something that we forgot to do, or we were supposed to do, or we fought it, like we were just talking about. We fought it. And God said, yeah, well, you did a really good job, Dave, but you fought that one thing and blah, blah, blah. And so you're going to go back and fix that. So anyway, so you go back. So you get back into that moment and we get our rebirth moment and stuff like that. I thoroughly believe that there is that imprint from the very beautiful spinning moment of all of us together in harmony in the light show. I believe there's an imprint that's put in, and that imprint is what this kind of guiding force is for each particular person. And I think that along the way, obviously, we cross paths with some people, and sometimes those people stay in our lives forever. And then sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're only supposed to be there for special moments, and those create memories, and those cause us to do actions, to help others possibly, or to learn something about ourselves, or whatever the case might be. And I think it's this big, beautiful painting, honestly. I hear people, I have heard people, I haven't recently, but I have heard people fight that thought. And I'm just like, I think it's just this big, beautiful mosaic that is already in place. And if you just follow the path, everything's going to be okay. And if you don't follow the path, then you're probably going through the beautiful cycle of lights a few more times until you kind of get it right, And I think that when people tell you that you're an old soul, that like you've learned a lot of stuff along the way, and maybe you're not going to be going back into that pool of lights again. Maybe there's a different place for you to go. You're going to transition forward somewhere, higher level of something, I guess.
Maybe. I also think that the universe adjusts. Like when you try to change something that you are doing and mess it up, as we all do. I mean, this isn't any sort of judgment or anything. We all do. We all do it. I think almost like a GPS that you put on your dash. Like it's like, you have taken a wrong turn, redirecting. Right. Like I think the universe adjusts to get you back to where you're supposed to be. You may not like the journey, but I think right. I think once you're there, you get back to this point that you were supposed to be at. That you got a little detoured. I think you're actually probably going to be better off. Our friend BJ, I haven't said this on the show yet, and because this was more of a recent thing that never really came up. Said something to me that really kind of hit home, and it kind of goes along with this. And we were talking about, lives who, you just feel like you're losing everything. And, like the harder you fight, the more shit just caves in on you, right. that sort of thing. Right. And you get this a lot in the Catholic faith and everything is, like it's a test, or, God would not give you.
Doesn't give you more than you can handle.
Exactly.
Right.
that sort of thing. But
right.
What he says, I'm trying to remember verbatim, but if I can't, I'll just paraphrase it. But he pretty much said, it's not, the test is not like you losing everything. It's how much stronger you put it back together. Like that is what the test is. The test is not you losing everything and how do you react. It's how you put it all back together. And I never heard it described like that before, because that has happened to me many times in my life. And honestly, every time it happens, the journey sucks. But when it finally comes to like a head and kind of you get over that hump, I've been better off every time.
Right.
I've been stronger. It's lasted longer. I've learned the lessons that I've needed to learn.
You feel better. Right.
Right.
Your life just feels better. You feel more emotionally positive. You feel happier, obviously.
Yeah. And I think that is that adjustment. That is that redirect. That is that detour that brings you back to where you should be. And then you go on until you do something else to screw it up. And then you do it all over again. Right. So, I know this is not exactly like what this question was meant to
right.
But I think
that's why it's such a good question.
I agree. Because I think a lot of people go through it. I think
right.
a lot of people wonder about it.
Right.
I think a lot of people ask that same question. What is this? How should I take this type of stuff? And even though you and I obviously are not experts in this,
no.
both you and I have had a lot of experience with it.
Yep.
And so for everybody out there who is wondering the same thing, you are not alone. And as our good friend Ken Baga would say, stay the course.
I will throw a final thought in here just for people kind of get a good grip of what we're really saying. Some of us, when we go off the path, go into a little grass field. and you just have to go through some grass.
It's a little
you're back
little
on the main
off-roading.
road, right? Some of us, when we go off the path, we're on the Grand Canyon burro ride where they walk right to the effing edge of the burrow and don't turn till the last second, and you're looking down like 1,500 feet of sheer cliff, wondering if this stupid ass donkey is going to commit suicide with you on its back. That is also a path, and that path sucks. It isn't always going to be the little detour going through the grass field. Those are easy. Sometimes it's the detour that looks like the burro trail going down the Grand Canyon. And that's a hair-raising experience. But you get to the bottom and you look at the beauty around you and you realize that you made it, and you get this sigh of relief and this, I would just say, for me, it's this implosion of love that is just like, I can't believe I'm here. This is absolutely amazing. And that is, so if you're listening to this and you're like, well, damn it, my path is nothing like that, going through that little grass field thing. Okay, I get it, man, because a lot of mine weren't either. A couple of mine were the burro rides. And at times I wanted to jump off the burro and just shove it off the goddamn cliff myself and be like, all right, you suicidal bastard, just go. And I'll just stand here. But I didn't. Something told me not to do that, and I didn't. And when I got down to the bottom and when the thing was over, it was beautiful. It was phenomenal, and it changed my life. And so they're not always going to be easy rides, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm just trying to give like a visual picture of that. So just hang tough, man. Don't give up. Giving up is not the answer.
Exactly.
So,
Real quick, complete off ramp here. Speaking of segue to suicidal animals, on my way home tonight, on I-94, going 77 miles per hour, the Jeep in front of me, out of nowhere, didn't see this one coming. Deer prances right out in front of him. The person right in front of me, boom.
ouch.
Goes in like 1,000 different pieces.
Ow.
And as I obviously this Jeep pulled over, and
Well, everybody braked hard. Yeah, I would imagine that was a hard braking moment.
Not really.
Oh, he just splattered it and then just kind of just went off, like pulled over gradually.
Yeah. And then as I passed him, I looked in my rearview mirror, like his bumper was a little messed up, like the gate, the grate and everything.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like,
wow,
nothing had happened. But this deer, all over the place, like poof, like a leg here, and like I'd never seen that before. That was intense. But anyway, next.
I'm telling you, and I'll say something about that since you brought that up. I mean, it's jumped into my mind. That's a moment where on your life path, that was not your moment to go. Because that deer, if doing 77 miles an hour, had jumped into your windshield versus your lower bumper, you'd be dead.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right? I mean, you're not going to live through a 77 mile an hour deer crash if the deer is high enough to come through your windshield. You're out of there. It's taking you out. So one of those moments in life where I don't know what they expect. Now, I don't know what that moment is supposed to teach that Jeep driver. Maybe be thankful that you bought a Jeep. I don't know. Or be thankful that deer went low. Whatever the moment is supposed to teach, I'm not sure. But, that's a moment.
Yeah. I mean, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
those are.
There wasn't even like a, boom. No. It was just in front, boom, like instant. So, okay, anyway. So, all right. So the last story from last week. Did my son see something? My great-grandmother was a gifted psychic. My father always told me I had her gift, and I do to a small degree, but I think my son may have it, and he made me uneasy tonight. He's 3.5, speaks very well, and is articulate for his age. He said there was a monster by my bed last night, maybe a couple of days ago. It was right there, and it had green eyes. I replied, but monsters aren't real. And he shrugged and said, well, who was trying to scare me then? Maybe it was Daddy. And he shrugged and let the matter go. For a while now, I've been hearing footsteps in the room. My son shares with his sister. She's 2. So I'll go up to check, and they'll be soundly in their beds, sleeping with the covers kicked off. I'll hear the footsteps again and go to check, and they're tucked in, under the covers and still sound asleep. My gift scares me. I saw something as a child that I can't speak about, so I sort of tuned it out, and I still get messages and dreams. Most recently, I keep dreaming of my son and my younger brother dying in a car accident. And usually these dreams come true, but I voiced it to my bro and should be okay. I'm wondering if there's something that's attached to my kids' room or something. And if there's something else that's protecting them, because I certainly didn't tuck them in for fear of waking them up. Any advice is appreciated. So this is a very interesting one because I think there's 2 different things that are going on here. I think the whole part of like your kids having the covers kicked off and then they're tucked in is probably more of maybe it's your great grandmother. I mean, you didn't really say that she was still alive. Right. So, I mean, if y'all have gifts, which I'm assuming you said you have, you said your son, probably has it even more than you do. I think that that's going to be easier for her, to the great grandmother, to come back and interact and be there to protect them, because she's going to know what it's like. She's going to have her memories of what she went through growing up and having the gift and what they are going to have. I don't know what this monster is. Obviously it seems to be a one-time thing. And I guess I would need more of a description before I say anything about it. I would honestly, if that was the only thing that happened, there was, he doesn't even really seem all that scared. He said, well, who was trying to scare me then? Like he understood that something was trying to scare him, but that it didn't really succeed.
Right. I got that feeling too.
So, I mean, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, if your son is that articulate and is that like kind of the old soul, I don't know if you can call 3-year-old an old soul, but if he's got that mentality where he's a lot more mature and he understands a lot more than a typical 3-year-old was, I wouldn't worry about it. Unless obviously he comes to you again and was like, this happened, I saw the same monster and it scratched me, that sort of thing. If it escalates. But if your son's not scared of it and it only happened that once, I wouldn't worry about it. If your son does have gifts, unfortunately, it's going to happen more and more and more. It may not be that monster. It may be something else, or it may be a neighborhood person who died in a car accident or whatever that sees his light and comes and visits looking for help. I mean, this is probably going to happen over and over again. And if your son is a bright light, which I think a lot of kids with gifts are, especially if they don't know how to contain it, like a 3-year-old wouldn't, you're probably going to get a lot of spirits coming to him for thinking that they can find help. And obviously seeing that it's a 3-year-old will leave because they'll be like, yeah, probably not. I mean, who knows? I mean, I know I said before that maybe the great grandmother or whatever came back and tucked him in. But honestly, I mean, if you get a passed on, housewife or something like that, and she comes to that light looking for help or answers or something as to what happened to her, and she sees, a 3-year-old kid and a 2-year-old kid without covers, she might tuck them in before she leaves. I definitely would not worry about that. I think just take, maybe write a journal, start a journal or something like that about, when do you hear the footsteps? What do, talk to your son, especially. Did you see anything last night? Did anybody come and visit you? And just keep a record of it and see if there are any patterns, see if it's all different, see if maybe it all goes away. But as of right now, just because he saw a monster that once, I think you're fine.
I agree. I think the grandmother probably did pass, the great grandmother, because it doesn't say my great grandmother is a psychic. It says was a gifted psychic. So I'm going to assume that she did pass. I totally agree with you that she's probably still around, because if she was a gifted psychic, she's going to have abilities. If she had really great abilities while she was alive, she's going to have great abilities while she's, on the other side. And obviously, I would think that she would probably be there to check up on the kids. It certainly could be a mother that had passed that had tucked the kids in, and I would totally understand that. And that is one of those feel-good paranormal moments. That's not a scary paranormal moment in any way, shape, or form. Even if it's a woman you didn't know who had kids and passed away and came in and helped you out or made your kids feel comfortable, man, I personally would not be upset with that in any way, shape, or form. I would appreciate that. Now, that doesn't mean I would welcome them to stay in my house necessarily, but I would say thank you, and I would say thank you very much for watching out for the kids and covering them back up. I'm going to guess, though, it was probably the great grandmother that came back. So here's where I'm going to differ just one little bit from what Mike said. Other than that, I'm totally on board with what you said, Mike. So the only thing that I see different here is when she said my gift scares me. I saw something as a child I can't speak about. You can't keep that shit contained in. And I can tell you that for a fact from somebody with experience. I kept mine. I swallowed all mine down, and I never talked about it because when I was experiencing it, nobody was experiencing it. If anybody was, nobody talked shit about it. And if anybody said anything about it, you were immediately labeled like you were going to the psycho hospital and get to wear your bunny slippers and get your Xanax and whatever other goddamn assortment of drugs they would throw down your throat. So I never spoke about it because I had nobody to turn to for a long time. And I think now that there's a lot more openness going on in the paranormal, I think that whatever you saw as a child, you need to talk about it. You don't need to talk to it about your kids. You don't need to talk to your 3-year-old about it. That is not what I'm implying here. That would be the absolute worst thing you could probably do. But you need to talk about it yourself, because you need to make yourself better so that you can keep your family in a good place. And having these things that scared you so bad that you have swallowed and you have them deep inside and you can't let go of it. And I don't care who you are, and I don't care how good you are or how tough you are. It doesn't make any damn difference. Those things that you swallow that you can't let go of come out in ways that you don't want them to at times when you don't want them to. And that's just what life is all about. So get rid of that. Whatever it was, go talk to somebody about it. Talk to a loved one, talk to an elder, talk to a support group, talk to a therapist. I don't care who you talk to, but get it out of your system and accept what you saw, talk about what you saw, understand it as best you can, and then move forward from it and let it go if possible. And that will help you moving forward in your life, I think, especially with your kids. And if you think your son is really gifted, don't tell him no. Don't tell him that there's no ghosts in the house. Don't tell him that he didn't see something. If you're gonna follow the traditional route of shutting down your child's experiences, then he won't have any later in life, and he'll be confused too, and he won't understand what's going on when he does still have experiences, because you've told him that those aren't real, and for some reason he's experiencing them, and now he's confused as hell. So call is yours. Obviously it's your kid, but I would say don't shut down his abilities with telling him to just forget about it. That's all I got.
Yep. Okay. I don't think I really have anything more to add to that. So,
All right.
There you go. All right. Well, looks like I get two in a row.
You get 2 in a row, buddy.
Go me. All right. We're on to this week's story. Stories now. We finished up last week's. It's all right. We saw a man get hit by a car, but there was no man. So this happened a few weeks ago during the day while my mom and I were in the car. I've been looking for an explanation since, but still don't have one, so I thought I'd reach out to you guys. We were driving on a 55-mile-per-hour road on our way back home with one car in front of us when we both saw a man walking towards the road to cross it. As we kept looking at the man, who was at this point was standing on the road, we started to scream at each other since the car in front of us did not see this man, although it was like 2 p.m. on a sunny day. The car in front of us just kept driving. And at that point, my mom parked our car on the side of the road, looking for what we expected to be a very injured man. Needless to say, we were both shocked when there was no man to be found at all. The car in front of us should have full-on hit this man with a speed of 55 miles per hour, but somehow this mystery man vanished. We looked around in the area for a while to see if we could find someone that looked like this man, but could not. There was no logical reason why my mom and I both saw the exact same man walking, but there wasn't anyone there. What do you think we saw or experienced? So, this is probably a little complex, maybe a little simplistic. I don't know which one it's going to go with. Depends on how I can get it to explain it. Dave, you've talked about this all the time. Is that certain experiences are meant for certain people.
Right.
You and I have it all the time where you're like, I just heard a voice. And I'm like, I think you're crazy.
Right.
Yep. Literally a conversation we've had.
Yep. Many times.
Yeah, many times.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. I just heard footsteps. I just heard a voice. And I'm like, I heard shit. Right. So they've even proved that on EVPs where they have five quarters going and
only one gets it,
or 3 get it and 2 other ones don't. They're right next to each other.
Right.
Or
where you hear a disembodied voice and you got a recorder in your hand and the recorder doesn't get it. Now how the hell does that happen?
Exactly.
Right. And everybody's like, I heard it. Like we're looking at each other going, did you just hear the woman? And then you listen to the recorder because you're really excited that you're going to have that piece of evidence to share with your client. And there's nothing there. And you're like, how in the hell did that not get recorded? Right. I don't have an explanation for that either, but weird stuff like that happens to us.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what this guy's connection to the mother and son are, but I don't know whether you both have gifts. That was obviously not part of your story.
Right.
Or maybe you don't even know if you have them. But whether it was residual, whether you were seeing an intelligent spirit who was just crossing the road and knew he wasn't in any danger, that was something that only you two were meant to see. I remember, I never met this person. I've just been told stories. Well, I'm sure it happens many, many, many times, but there are certain psychics and mediums out there who can't drive anymore. They can't get behind the wheel of a car because they see spirits so clearly. They can't tell the difference between a living person and a dead person. So if they drive down the road and there's a spirit walking across the road, they're going to stop because they see him full on, plain as day, full solid, but nobody else will. So I don't think there's anything that you need to worry about. I mean, it's not a curse. It's not anything that is going to affect you, minus the fact that you're looking for an explanation. But I guess take solace in knowing that there is no injured man, and that you're not crazy. I just think that you had an experience that was meant for you two, that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, I just think that you two were the only one in that area who was going to be able to see him. Mm-hmm. And then once, his energy, I got probably merged with the car in front of you, he dissipated. It's not anything that you have to dwell on. It's not going to haunt you in life unless you let it. So that's my answer.
I like that finishing statement. It's not going to haunt you in life unless you let it. I like that. So, man, you are evolving. So I kind of agree with you. I think one of two things here, to be honest with you. I think kind of agree with you. I think this was either residual, where at one point the guy was walking across the road, and they just happen to see it for whatever reason. Now, why they would both see the exact same thing, again, they were meant to see it, I think, at that point, right? Either that one of them would have seen it, one of them wouldn't. They'd have been confused what the hell is going on, blah, blah, blah. Or, and I hope this is not the case, that this is some sort of premonitional type of moment where somebody is going to cross that road somewhere in the near future and is not paying attention for whatever reason, or is distraught, or who knows what the hell's going on. And so they make this really poor decision in their lives that they're going to try to cross this 55-mile-an-hour road and at a place where it's completely unsafe. And they walk out and, the car in front of them hits them. But for some reason that the tragedy wasn't shown to the two people in the car. Now, I don't know why that wouldn't be shown to them. I don't have all the answers, obviously, but maybe it was not meant to be shown to them. Maybe it's, I don't know. If it's a premonitional type of thing, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it doesn't. I hope it never happens. I'll just stick with residual, from my human soul standpoint. That's what I prefer, is that it's a residual type of thing, that in the past somebody walked out, they never got hit by a car, they crossed the road safely, and that's why the car in front of you just drove right through them, because they never did get hit and they were completely fine. And for some reason, there's a residual there, maybe for something else. Who knows? Maybe there was a car accident there. The guy went off the road. He was dazed and confused, was walking back across the road to safety, and he made it. And the car accident is what caused the residual energy storage to be right at that specific spot. Like he drove in the ditch and there was a bad accident. Somebody else maybe got hurt bad. Maybe something like that happened. Hopefully it's not a premonitional type of thing. So that's all I got on that one,
Yep.
But I'm with you on most of what you said. So, okay. Number 2, weird occurrence of my guitar. I think it's playing by itself. So I keep waking up at around 4:30 to 5 a.m. in the morning to the sound of my 12-string guitar playing in the living room. The first few times this occurred, I thought someone had entered my house, so I went downstairs. Then the moment I entered the living room, the sound stops. It's truly puzzling me. I constantly keep looking inside the guitar and around my living room because my first thought was that someone was playing some kind of joke on me. I was beginning to think that it was all just in my imagination until a friend who stayed over asked, "Why were you playing the guitar so early in the morning?" So obviously it isn't just me. Has anyone experienced anything like this or have any ideas towards a logical explanation? Or would I be correct to wonder if this is something of a paranormal nature? Okay. So I thought about this one for a while and I thought, okay, so you're hearing the sound of your 12-string guitar playing in the living room. It was strange to me that you would think that somebody broke into your house and the first thing they thought was important for them to do was to announce their presence by breaking into your residence by playing your guitar, which I thought that was really strange. I'm like, what the hell is going on with that? I'm lost here. I'm truly lost. So once I got myself past that mentally, I'm like, okay, well, what else could it be? Could it be a rodent? Could there be mice in the house? There are many, many, many stories about pianos playing by themselves, and a lot. I won't say a lot, but I will say this: numerous times that people have truly spent the time to investigate what is happening. They have found things like mouse droppings and stuff like that inside the piano, especially if it's older, in an older place that's not really well taken care of. And that when the mice run across the piano cord or strings, that they make kind of the key sound. Now, it's not truly if somebody was sitting down playing, but it's enough to make the sound of the key, which if you're in the vicinity, you hear it, you're like, oh my God, the piano just started playing. Yeah, right. Maybe it did. Maybe it did. Maybe it was a rodent. So I was thinking about that. I'm like, okay, maybe it's a mouse got into guitar. But then my logic kicked in and I'm like, okay, is a mouse going to run up and down guitar strings? I would say probably not. I guess I don't know, but I would guess not. If it went inside the hole in the guitar, is that going to make sounds of the strings? I don't think so. I would say no, would be my best guess. You had a friend stay over and asked you why you were playing your guitar so early in the morning. Okay, so I think I would take that as valid. I would say, well, obviously there's more than one person hearing it. So here's my best guess. You've got something that showed up at your place. It's probably somebody just passing through. They happen to show up to your house. I don't know why they would show up to your house. I have no indication that there's anything that's happened paranormal prior to you. But I'm going to say this person has played a 12-string guitar before, and they saw it, and it was something comfortable for them, kind of maybe tied them back to their life, and they're kind of lost in limbo at the moment. And so they played a little bit. You know, they sat down and they enjoyed strumming a few strings, strumming a few chords, whatever. I wouldn't be worried about it, honestly. I mean, if you hear your guitar playing, I would, after a couple of times of it happening, if it were in my house, my guitar, I would just be like, hey, you know what? That sounded good. If you want to play, be my guest. Maybe not at 4:30 in the morning, though, right? Maybe we could figure out a better time for you to play, like around lunchtime. You know, so I'm at work. You can play the guitar. Completely fine with that. You know, but you're waking me up at 4:30, and I don't usually get up till 7. So maybe we don't do it at 4:30 in the morning. That would be fantastic. So that's one of those things that, like, Mike's good at negotiating, is the let's coexist
compromise.
type of thing. Yeah, let's compromise, right? Let's compromise, right? Let's coexist. And I don't think this is a moment where you need to scream out, hey, this is my house, and set your boundaries and all that shit. This is totally not one of those moments. This is just a moment where something just is passing through. It's probably going to pass on its own. Honestly, I don't think it's going to be around very long at all anyway. So maybe enjoy it while it happens and have a great story to pass on to your friends and family. That's what I would say. I don't think there's anything to be afraid of here at all.
No, I agree with you on that one. But I too, when you were reading that story, the first thing that came to my mind is, right, so somebody's going to break into your apartment or your home, and the first thing they're going to do is pick up your guitar and start playing it. Like, that was the whole reason for this.
Announcing their presence. Hi, I'm here to break into your house. Ding, 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 ding. You know, made no sense to me.
You know, but to everybody's defense, they try to figure anything other than the paranormal.
Right.
You know, so they'll grasp on any string that they can.
Right.
You know, to try and figure this out.
Nice segue there, by the way. Grasp onto any string. That was a good one.
That's right. You like what I did there?
I did. I had to point that out. That was good. So,
I'm going to go full on Cena here. I'm honestly thinking that the person who is playing the guitar is this guy. You know, whether he's played it so much and now leaves a residual energy to it, I don't know. I don't know how often he plays. But I think that and any musician that is listening, if they want to, I don't want to say argue with me, but if they want to, not debate, but counter my argument or tell me that I'm wrong. But I think any musician has a very certain way in which they play. Like, their music is very distinct to them. And I think that, especially if the friend, I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe the friend heard him playing and was like, the first thing is, why is he playing so early in the morning? Either it was the way the music was played reminded this person of the fact that it could be him, or he was the only person in the house. So he was the only one that could do it. I don't know, but my question would be, does the music sound familiar? You know, does it sound like you? Did you get taught by your father or a brother who has, since passed away? If it's not him specifically, either future him or residual him, um, that knows how to play, and it's just one of those things like the flickering lights, just something to let them know that they're there. Why 4:30 or 5 in the morning? I have no idea. That could simply be that is when the energy level is the right amount or the right way where it allows it. You know, that's something that I don't think has really been asked is, are there certain times that work for certain spirits? I mean, everybody talks about dead time, 3 a.m. That's dead. That's the witching hour. No, I mean, you and I both know that's complete bullshit. But let's just say the Leduc Mansion is the proper time for the Leduc family to be able to come out 3 in the afternoon.
Right.
Whereas, you go to Edinburgh Manor, the proper time to be there is 4 in the morning.
Yeah, or 9 p.m. when everybody's going to bed, right? Everybody, like all the energy is starting to work its way down. So that's like a huge surge moment for one or two entities to pop back out.
Maybe. I mean, is there certain times of the day that work best for certain spirits' energies?
Right. I think that's a good question. But I think probably that is true. I think going back to the Leduc, they probably were up. Like if you're sleeping and then everybody in the family rises at, let's say you're living on a farm back in the time when the Leducs were there, you were probably up at 5:30 in the morning because you had animals to take care of, you had chores to do, you had things to do. That's probably a surge, right? As everybody in the family is waking up, that's a surge of energy getting up. Is that surge that explosive? No, absolutely not. It's just a normal surge. But over time, does that surge compound? I don't know. Maybe, right? I mean, maybe if 12 people in the house get up at 5:30 every morning for 20 years, does that create a 5:30 a.m. moment in that property? Maybe, right?
Exactly.
Could be. Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, that's all I got for that one. It's interesting. I have more questions for it to really be able to knock it down.
I would agree. So I got to throw this in here quick. So I just got a quick message from Terry, who said, or 3:15 a.m.
Let it go, Terry.
Which is funny because she saw the movie. Oh my God! How can I forget it now that I'm live on the air? Oh, the house in New England with the windows with the pig in the house. What is that one, Mike? The movie Amityville Horror.
I was going to say, you're not talking about Amityville, are you?
Yes, so she saw Amityville Horror and it freaked her out. Like 3:15 a.m. was when everything was going off. And so now, like, if she here we go, I'm going to get yelled at. I'm going to get like, shut up, Dave. So at 3, so she has this thing now at 3:15. If she gets woken up at 3:15, it freaks her out. So
gotcha. Okay.
So that just goes to show you how Hollywood is corruptive. Because nothing special happens at 3:15. I've tried to explain that to her, but Mike, you go ahead and tell her.
Terry, listen to me. I'm doing this for your own good here.
Yes.
There's nothing at all that has to do with 3:15 or 3 a.m. or anything. The Amityville Horror is actually a complete, at least I think so, a complete hoax. Okay? So obviously Hollywood makes it look scary. Half the shit they throw in the movie didn't even happen. You're going to be okay.
Right.
This seems to be another one of those, well, something happened to me if I watch this show or I watch the TV. Right. No! I just love the fact that my voice went through your microphone.
It did. And I picked that up too. I'm like, wow, he really was emphatic about that moment.
No. Just say no. I'm going to wave my finger at you. No.
It's one of those things, though, it gets into people's heads, and it's the same thing with paranormal TV. 3 a.m. is the witching hour, right? Like who the hell knew before paranormal TV? Who in the hell ever knew that 3 a.m. was the paranormal witching hour? Right? I can tell you for a fact that I had shit happening in my life 3 a.m. was never a moment, man. Shit was happening all the time, all throughout the night after I went to bed. So it was never like at 3 a.m. I wish it was just a crescendo at 3 a.m. because then I would know, all right, well, 3 a.m. I'm effed. But the rest of the night, at least I'm going to get some sleep and not piss in the bed, right? That would be great. But it didn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. Not in my childhood. So
no, not in anybody's childhood. You know, and even when we had Michelle Belanger on, I asked the question, where did the threes is a mocking of the Trinity? Where did that actually come from?
Right.
She's like, I never heard of it before until the Warrens. You know, that was her exact answer. I never heard of that before until the Warrens.
I don't know. I'd have to really dig into that to see if it really was the Warrens that did it. I know that for a long time, it's been said that Christ, when he was killed on the cross, was at 3 p.m. by scholars, right? And so that I don't know who it was that first came up with the whole Christ was killed on the cross at 3 p.m. That final blow that stabbed to his lung that made his chest collapse, where he literally passed, you know, which would be referred to obviously as the spear of destiny for those who might not know that. But I'm not sure who it was that said at 3 a.m. that's the antithesis of the time that Christ died. And so Christ died at 3 p.m. So now the devil is the strongest 12 hours later. I think that comes way before the Warrens, to be honest with you.
I was actually,
but I don't understand why that would be the case. So
I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about the threes, like the 3 knocks and the 3 scratches.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought you were referring to 3 being the 3 a.m., 3 p.m. thing. Okay,
no,
my bad.
No.
Never mind.
So sorry about that. No,
okay.
I was just I was referring to the whole, you know, the threes.
Okay, so like if you hear 3, like all of a sudden that's the devil knocking on your window type of thing, or on your door. Yeah, no, I don't believe that shit at all.
No, neither do I. And I think it's the same way. I don't know who came up with it, but I think somebody somewhere decided to be spooky,
right,
and was like, well, if Christ was killed at 3, then the anti-hour,
right, the Antichrist would be 12 hours later.
Yeah, it would be 3 a.m., which is the opposite of
right.
Yeah, I don't believe that either. And we have years now. I can actually say this.
Decades of experience.
Yeah, we've decades of experience,
right?
And how that is not the case.
I'm not going to say I haven't had shit happen at 3 a.m. because that would be a lie.
Of course not.
I've had shit happen at 3 a.m., but I've had shit happen at 2:45, 2:30, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, midnight, 9 p.m., 11 p.m., 5:30 in the morning. It's not like it happens all the time. I've had shit happen at noon.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't make any sense. I think the only reason that people even know the term witching hour is because of paranormal TV, to be honest with you. Somebody on paranormal TV was like, oh my God, it's 3 a.m. and we heard a noise, and this is the time when the devil comes to play. No, it's not. But thank you for effing society and their minds to think that shit is true now. And then everybody else who was a wannabe played on that fear factor level. And now we got this whole mess that we have to deal with.
Yep. It's hard to fight an idea.
It is.
So
I gave up a long time ago because I just like, people are going to believe it where they want to believe it. It's the same people that bring the dust orbs to you. I took this photo at 3 a.m. as I was kicking my feet along the floor in this old abandoned church. Look what happened.
Those people make my face twitch.
You know, they don't bother me because they're trying to learn. It never bothers me. I'm always willing to help, but just come to me with an open mind. If you want an honest answer, don't come to me with, this is what it is, and be vehement about it, because, you know, if you're vehement about it and you want to get into an argument, I'm not even going to talk to you about it. I mean, if you're like, hey, I think I caught something, can you take a look at it? Just give me what you think. I most certainly can. I most certainly will. And shame on the people who are on paranormal TV who don't take the time to do that anymore. And if they don't like to hear that, tough shit. Because I know personally we have a lot of friends in the paranormal. We have a lot of friends that are paranormal TV. And a lot of them don't take the time to do that anymore. And I get that it gets old. I get it. But you're getting paid. You're getting paid. That's your job. You're getting paid to be on paranormal TV, which means that it's also your responsibility, in my opinion, to help people who are trying to understand things that they think are paranormal that have happened to them. You can't just do this. What if accountants did that? What if an accountant gets paid to crunch numbers? What if an accountant, you get paid to be on paranormal TV? What if an accountant who gets paid to crunch numbers would look, and you came in there and was like, look, I got some questions. Like, I bought some farmland. And he's like, oh, farmland? Oh, you're out of here. I'm not going to talk to you about farmland. I mean, what the hell would happen if shit like that was going on? I walk into a hair salon and I'm like, I'm not really exactly sure what haircut I want. I was thinking, well, you don't know what cut you want? Well, get the hell out of here. I don't have time for people who don't exactly know what's going on. That's just bullshit. Those might not be great examples, but that's what came to the front of my mind.
Yeah, so I was saying, no, those are pretty terrible, but that's okay. So I did want to say that I am glad, and this kind of goes against what you just said, that
Thanks.
They're no longer. Well, no. It's not against you, but I just mean it's a little bit of a against your point you were trying to make.
Okay.
I'm very happy that nobody explains what an EVP is anymore. And what I mean by that is nobody they no longer transition to their spot interview or their other interview and they're like EVP, which stands for electronic voice phenomena. Like, nobody does that anymore, and I'm so thankful for that. Because it got old after like 5 years of hearing the same thing over and over again. But I get your point. Right. I don't think people need an explanation as to what an EVP is,
right,
as opposed to what is an EVP and what isn't. Like literally the voice and
right,
not.
Or versus some like mechanical shuffling.
Well,
that's
what I mean.
So faint, like what you and I would a long time ago. Remember, like a long time ago, way before any paranormal TV, when you and I would listen to EVPs together, we would sit down together and say, look, this is distinct. This is what we would consider a Class A EVP, right? We put that classification on ourselves. It wasn't based on anybody else's knowledge. And then we would listen to something and be like, okay, this is a Class B. I hear something. Maybe I just don't distinctly hear. Like, I have to guess at a couple of the words, right? And so this is like a Class B. And then, this is like, maybe this is possibly something. So we're going to just throw this as a Class C type of thing. But we decided early on when you and I were together that we're not showing clients anything unless it's Class A, right? And when we took things to clients, we took things that were clearly audible. Like when we went to Brian and Kelly's, we took them nothing but Class A's.
Mm-hmm. No, I know.
And I guess that was maybe easy because at that location it was all Class A's, right? I mean, it was crazy ass busy. I still have all of the EVPs from that place, and there's 82 of them. Yeah, and they were almost all of them were Class A's, and almost all of them were intelligent responses to what was happening at that moment.
Well, right, and for my team, whenever we go over a case and the evidence of it, there's a lot of them where we all hear, we're like, yeah, this is a voice,
right?
But there's 4 different ideas as to what it says,
right?
And we're all just like, if we have 4 different ideas of what it says, it's not a very good.
It's not a Class A.
It's not a very good EVP. Why would we even bring that to a client?
No, and you wouldn't bring that to a client. No, I would never bring that to a client, because all you're doing is evoking fear. If that client is scared, all you're doing is bringing more confusion, fear, and other emotions that don't need to be there to that client, right? If you can get if you get ask an intelligent question and you get a Class A clear EVP that you have no doubt whatsoever, 100 people listen to it and everybody's like, "Yep, I heard that. That's exactly what." And they don't. Now, first of all, let's put it this way: you never tell anybody what an EVP says if you want them to listen to it, right?
Yep.
A lot of people do that. So I want you to listen to this EVP, and what I hear is an old lady saying, "I wouldn't do that." So you listen, and then you hand me the headphones, and what do I hear? I hear an old lady saying, "I wouldn't do that," because that's what you just told me I'm going to hear.
Yep.
Okay, so a lot of people make that mistake. What you need to do is hand me the headphones and say, "What do you think this says?" Mm-hmm. And then when I listen to it, I would say, "Sounds like an old elderly woman. It says, I wouldn't do that." Mm-hmm. What did you think it said? And they'd be like, "That's exactly what we wrote down. That's exactly what I think it says too." Right. Yeah. That's a Class A EVP definition for those people wondering about when they get EVPs, I guess. Don't share what you think it says. Do not share what you think it says. Write down what you think it says. Everybody listens to it, writes down what they think it says, then share it together as a group. And then if you're off one word, don't dismiss that. Don't throw that away. Don't do the when in doubt, throw it out crap. Sorry, guys. You know who I'm talking to. But, I love you guys, but I don't love that. So, if you're off one word, if there's 5 people listening to it and 4 people got it, 1 person is close, that's a Class A EVP, is what I'm trying to say. So, and that's something you take to the client, and then you try and help them understand what's happening at their location.
Yeah, but you still don't tell them what it says until after they hear it.
After they hear it, absolutely. Yeah. But you know going in that you've got experienced ears listening to it, and that you have, everybody's like, yeah, that is exactly what I hear. That's what I got. So,
yeah, the most I will do during a reveal with a client is give them the context of what is going on at the time, who's there, and you're going to hear our investigator ask this or say this, and then right afterwards, a voice comes in.
Right. This is what we caught.
That's all I ever say.
Yeah. I always say this is what we caught.
Let me know
what you think or what you hear.
What you think.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, all right. On with the show.
Well, I was just going to say we got more questions, but we're going to have to stop there because we got to get to this pale crawler thing. So,
yes, we do. So let me just start off with this story. And this, like I said, the pale crawler, otherwise known as like the white humanoid crawler, quote unquote, has a lot of sightings here in not only Minnesota, but like the Twin Cities.
Right.
Which is weird for a cryptid.
I agree. So, it is weird for a cryptid to be in our neck of the woods.
Yeah. So I like to read this story for you because I think that this is not Brendan's. This is just one that I found from a Minneapolis park. So this is like not only on like the outskirts, this is like Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget the night of August 14th, 2021. So we're talking less than a year. I was fishing the river with my friend in a suburb of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. We loved coming to this public park to fish because it was quiet and there was a nice sandbar to fish from. This park had a Sioux burial. I don't think they took it out.
Well, hopefully not. Otherwise, that's why it's there.
So, yeah. Right. This park has a Sioux burial mound about a half mile from our spot. After fishing for a better part of the day, we decided to leave at dusk. In order to get back to our vehicles, we had to take a trail through the woods, which was about a 5-minute walk. I put a clip-on light on the bill of my hat so we could see the trail. I remember when I first glanced ahead down the trail, I saw 2 circular white lights that I assumed were fireflies. Once we got further down the trail, we were closer to the area where I had seen the fireflies. It was then that I saw a pair of eyes that were either highly reflective from my light or glowing white. It wasn't long before I could make out a body. It was a very large white body on 4 legs, bigger than a wolf, but unnaturally skinny. I couldn't make out any facial features because its eyes were so bright. Sorry, my thing like shifted. Blah, blah, blah. I wanted to warn my friend, but all I could manage to say was, there's something there. We had no choice but to proceed because this was the only way back to our vehicles. This thing just stared us down but didn't make a sound. My friend yelled at it to try and scare it away, but it didn't react at all. I yelled at it after she did, and it responded back mimicking my voice. I honestly questioned myself and thought I was imagining things. Sorry, shifted again because there's advertisements on this page. I honestly questioned myself and thought I was imagining things. So I yelled at it again, and it responded back at the same volume, same pitch, exactly like my voice. At this point, we realized this was not an animal. We both continued on the path in silence, but I maintained eye contact with the creature. I felt like this thing was ready to attack us at any moment, but it just stood there staring. Eventually, we were out of the woods, and I could no longer see its eyes. We made it back to our vehicles and felt a sense of relief. I asked my friend, "Did you hear that talk back to me?" She said she did, and it sounded like my voice when it responded back to us. If she hadn't heard the voice, I would have assumed that I imagined it. We went over what happened, and our stories were the same, except she said the creature had a wolf-like head. After our experience, my friend, who is native Hmong, went to see a shaman. The shaman believed it was an evil spirit and performed a cleansing on her. She was still shaken up by the experience for several weeks. I tried to hire a spiritual advisor online, but when I described the experience and asked for a spiritual cleansing of my own, it said they were not available at this time. At the advice of one of my friends, I burned some tobacco and said a prayer that the entity would leave me alone. It took me several months to feel normal again, but I still think about it on a weekly basis. I tried to do further research and contacted the management at the park. They said the park we went to had ancient native remains scattered along the river that were unmarked. They said there were more native remains in that park than any other parks they managed. I contacted several Native American friends and was told the entity we encountered was a skinwalker. I know skinwalkers are part of the Navajo culture, but from what I read, it checks more of the boxes more than any other supernatural being or cryptid. So what I find interesting about this, and this is one of the reasons why I read it, is, like I said, Brennan had given me I hope I just didn't read his story. There was no name to it. But this sounded like a lot like his. So this is kind of the brief synopsis that he gave me. He said, I witnessed this creature for 2 to 3 minutes, and it appeared to be physical, but it wasn't some animal. This thing mimicked my voice twice in a row, and with my friend present. It either had more eye shine than a deer, or its eyes were glowing. So I don't know if maybe I just read his story.
It kind of sounds similar. Yeah.
It really does. But a lot of...
And where he works, that might be his story. If you think, maybe.
He didn't tell me exactly where they were. They did say that they were fishing. So, I mean...
Okay.
So if I just read your story, you're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're right. Exactly. But we're going to hear it out of your own mouth, buddy. So I'm just saying, right? We still want to hear your exact story, not the typed up version of it. But right. But that doesn't surprise me though about what the Native American remains in Minnesota, because obviously there are dozens of sites that are considered to be highly spiritual Native American remains, even in Twin Cities, let alone outlying suburbs.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just trying to read his one of his first ones to see if there is any more information on it. But you know what? I almost think I did just read his story, because his last August I had an encounter with a pale crawler with a friend, and I left the fishing spot. I wonder if I did just read his story.
That probably was his story.
Well, then, never mind. Brendan, you don't need to send us your story anymore.
But I'd still like to hear it out of his own mouth. So.
So would I. Don't worry. Yeah, don't worry about that. But one of the things that when I was going through other stories, that there was one of the things that a lot of people talked about was this pale crawler is tall, skinny, very pale or white, hairless, long fingers on all fours, and mimics voices. Which, when you and I first looked this up, we were together in the same room and you kind of read some of the things.
Yep.
My first reaction to that is it sounds exactly like a Wendigo.
Yep.
What was my original thought. And I don't know if because I was going off of what Supernatural, the show, Supernatural had kind of shown to be
what a Wendigo look like. Yeah.
What a Wendigo would look like, and even they did the whole mimics voices, especially because one of the things that I had found was another story of a Wendigo, and it was actually a pale crawler, but it sounded a lot like a Wendigo. But they were talking about how they were out. I think this took place, I want to say in Colorado, so it's not a Minnesota sighting. But they were out in the woods, and it sounded like an owl a little bit, but like a humanoid.
I saw that one in my research too. Yeah.
Right. But like a humanoid owl.
Right.
Which is interesting because as I was reading that, because I had never heard of the Wendigo doing that or the pale crawler doing that.
Right.
But while the team and I, first it was Lauren and I, but then the team a few weeks later were out at our respectfully admired cemetery.
Yep.
We heard stuff like that. Yep. And it was owls that I had never, like, it wasn't just the whoo, like it was, type of thing.
Right.
Like it scared the crap out. The first time we heard it when it was just Lauren and I made reference to it being, I'm like, it sounds like a frat guy, drunk at a party, like, wah, just kind of
not there, not at that location. Yeah.
Like, well, exactly. But I mean,
right.
That's what it sounded like.
Right.
And so I don't know, reading over these stories of what people have encountered and what they sounded like and stuff like that makes me wonder if maybe it wasn't an owl that was going on.
I don't know, but I could tell you that location, that's a strong native area.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot, right? There's a lot of, because that not far from that location, not very far from that location is where I got that Native American EVP that asked me how old I was when I died. Like, and I was like, what? Like when I listened to it, and when I listened back to it, just the tone of his voice, I saw that, really old chiseled face, with the full headdress on. It was just, I could see it. I could see it in my mind's eye now, when I get that. And that was not far from there. That's part of that kind of triangle of locations that are in that county that are active and phenomenal. And there's a lot of native stuff obviously happened there. So that doesn't surprise me at all. But I could bet you, and I never say 100%, I'm going to go 99.999999997. That was not a frat boy howling in the woods.
Well, of course
that's
not.
What you heard, because I know that's my favorite spot, and I know for a fact there's nothing there that would be fraternity.
Yeah. Well, of course not. Why does everybody take me literally? I'm just taking something.
No. I get
comparable,
you. Right?
Comparable to what it sounded like. It did not sound like any animal I had ever heard. It sounded like a human being being like, in the woods, and that's all are out
years
there.
ago when
Woods.
Tina and I had teamed up and we were at that location, and Tina and I were standing there and we watched what I thought was a deer walk by us, like a deer body, but it was only like 3 feet away. And I thought, Jesus, that's an awful calm deer for being out in the wild. And we're watching it, and the deer is making absolutely zero noise whatsoever. And I look over at her and I go, you see that dark shadow, right? And she's like, I do. And I said, okay. And we're talking out loud, and this thing is not responding to us, like freaking out whatsoever. And I'm like, okay. I said, what does it look like to you? And she said, it looks like a deer. I said, I think it looks like a deer to me too. It looked like a doe. Didn't have a rack. And so I'm like, yep, it looks like a doe too. And it's just gradually, slowly moving in front of us, 3 to 4 feet away from both of us. And then all of a sudden it like runs. It like goes down to 4s and runs. And it runs to that back corner where that cinder block building is. And then it comes back around the corner and it peeks out at us like this. And it was not a deer's head. It was like a humanoid head. And I looked at her and she looked at me and we're like, yeah, we're going to go over here. And we were just kind of like, we weren't scared of it, but I'm just like, whatever that was totally freaky. It was cool as hell to see, but it was totally freaky. We both saw the exact same thing. And we're both like, yeah, whatever. I mean, that is something that is kind of in line with this, except for the fact it was a dark shadow versus, what I would not consider obviously to be a white shadow with shiny white eyes.
Yeah.
I have not seen a skin pale crawler. I'm kind of glad I haven't. I'm not really in a hurry to see one, to be honest with you.
No, I mean, but whereas the sightings of it are plentiful.
They are.
I'm wondering if it's the pale crawler and the Wendigo are not the same thing. The only difference I think between the two is the pale crawler seems to be like a flesh and blood like entity, like a cryptid, whereas the Wendigo is considered to be like an evil spirit. Like let's say it's a giant humanoid. It's got a foul stench, or it has a sudden like unreasonable chill that comes as it approaches you.
Yep.
It's supposedly supposed to it can possess you, it can
eat you,
I suppose, or make you want to be murderous, make you want to be engage in cannibalism. That's what I read. I think
that's accurate. I mean, that's what I read too. So,
well, I don't know how accurate it is, but it's what we both read.
Well, it's accurate from the standpoint of that's what research is pointing towards.
Right. The only thing that I don't get, and and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you know the history of this area far more than I do, is the Navajo aren't here. No. It's the Sioux. And so that's why when I'm just going to say this is Brendan's story. When that person said that they had a thing with a skinwalker,
right?
That doesn't make any sense. That nobody has encounters with the skinwalker in this area.
No.
I understand.
I have never heard a story whatsoever from the Midwest of a skinwalker. They're all out west.
So, I don't think that's what
no
they saw.
I don't think that's accurate at all. Wendigo comes from here. Wendigo is a Midwest thing.
Yes.
Skinwalker is a southeastern, southwestern United States type of being. It's not from here. Just like I don't believe, like if you went out to Arizona and asked somebody about a Wendigo, I honestly believe you would never get anybody who ever had a story of, oh my God, I ran across a Wendigo from somebody who lived in New Mexico or Phoenix or Nevada or Utah. There's just Wendigos aren't out there. They're here in the Midwest. Skinwalkers are out there. I don't think they cross lines, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it would be interesting to, when we do get a chance to talk to Brendan, to find out if was there a foul stench, was there a chill in the air,
right?
Something that would leads you to believe that maybe, pale crawlers and wendigos are the same thing. It just seemed like, especially when you read it to me, of what a pale crawler looked like.
Right.
That's what came to my mind was what was a wendigo. But that doesn't mean, obviously, that. All right.
I will say this while you're looking something up. I will say this about wendigos, okay, before we jump into other topics, or not other topics, but other parts of the conversation. That a lot of times that I have seen that I've heard wendigo stories, or I have like read witness reports of wendigos, stuff like that, that it seems to me that a lot of times a wendigo has kind of like a large, for a better term, like a buck's head, so it has like a large, either like an elk or a deer head, whatever, but it also has a big rack, and that's part of what it uses in order to hunt or to kill or to terrorize, or whatever term you want to put on it. It's prey. And this pale crawler thing, with its kind of like skin tight, emancipated body, doesn't have any features other than the fact it's 6 to 7 foot tall, maybe 8 foot tall, has the ability to drop to all fours, really kind of translucent skin. I mean, if that, to me, that doesn't sound like something that's potentially alien, honestly, I don't know what the hell sounds like something that's potentially alien. I mean, it's so far out of the realm of what something natural in our world would look like. I just can't throw out the idea that this might be something extraterrestrial, because the wendigo wants to kill you, is evil, wants to kill you, wants to harvest your soul, wants to make you suffer, wants to cause others to suffer, whatever the case might be. This pale crawler thing scares the shit out of you, but past scaring the shit out of you when you see it, did you read anything while you were researching that said it like hunted you down the trail as you were running, and when it finally got to you, it was going to like rip you apart? No, I mean, maybe you did. I didn't. I didn't see a single thing that said like it wanted to kill me. All I saw was it scared the shit out of me when I saw it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that right? Or
yeah, no. The Colorado story that I read just had it running across the road. And again,
right.
Everybody was scared shitless.
Right.
But it didn't attack anybody.
But it didn't attack anybody, and it certainly could have, right?
And nobody talked about, wanting to be murderous. Nobody talked about how like they were suddenly angry and they wanted to kill the person that they were with. Like there was none of that.
Right.
So either people have the Wendigo way wrong, or we're looking at like an offshoot,
or we're looking at two totally separate entities.
And
is this a new entity, right? Is this a new cryptid?
Could be. I mean, we found, I shouldn't say we found, but I mean, the Glimmer Man, was
right.
That's
a fairly new cryptid, right? From everybody's standpoint, I think that's a fairly new cryptid.
And now it seems that we may have another. I lost where I was going with this. But I mean, the Wendigo itself, it is seen as the embodiment of gluttony, greed, and excess. Never satisfied after killing and consuming one person, they're constantly searching for new victims. Everything about the Wendigo seems to be that it's out to kill you.
Just terror, right? Just seems to be harmful, negative, bloodthirsty. Right, you should be running your ass off if you see it, right? Or be prepared to fight and lose, because I can't run for shit, so I'm going to stand my ground. But I'm pretty much sure I'm going to lose. But I don't. But whatever. It's going to be one hell of a 5-second fight.
Yeah, I would just try to what's the word I'm looking for?
Trip the person
appeal.
who's slowest next to you, and
well, no, that's you.
Faster than that person.
That's you. No,
that would be
I
me.
I would try
trip somebody, get a foot past them, and be like, "There you go. It's my gift to you," and then continue on my way.
I would try to appeal to its health consciousness. I'd be like, look at me. I'm all fat and grizzle. All you're going to do is you're going to clog your arteries. Look at this person over here, succulent. They're beautiful. You go ahead, take them. You're going to love it. It's filet mignon to, top butt.
Yeah,
okay.
Chuck roast. Yeah.
to a shoulder roast. Here.
Yeah, Chuck roast versus filet mignon. Man, what do you prefer? All right.
That's all I'm saying. I'm like, look, you can kill me if you want, but you're going to miss out on this.
Waste your time.
Meal
yeah, absolutely, waste your time.
That's right. I'm gamey.
I'm gamey. I'm gamey tasting. You don't want me.
Tough to chew. It's
You got a poor diet. You're not going to get much nutrients out of me. Not a lot of vitamins going through me. Yeah, it's bad. My blood's anemic. Did I say I was anemic? I forgot. Did I mention that? Yeah, you're not going to like my blood either. I'm anemic. You're not going to like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Trust me, salt and pepper, not going to do you any favors.
No. You're effed. Yeah. Bad choice, buddy. Just push me on the ground and go get that person running in front of me because they are delish. That's all I got to say.
Right. So I did find another story from Minnesota. This person seems to have had multiple.
Is this the Chanhassen one?
I don't know. It just says Minnesota, so probably not, because I know the one that you were talking about.
That was the Chanhassen one. Yeah.
That you had pulled up actually said Chanhassen, Minnesota on it.
Yep.
In fact, it even mentioned one of my customers.
I know. Yeah. So I'm going to read that one too while we're kind of reading stories, but I'll wait till you're done with yours. So.
Oh, I was just saying because I already read one, so you could have done yours, but
no, that's fine. Go ahead with yours, and then I'll do the Chanhassen one.
All right. All right. So a while back, some friends and I would get bored, so we'd find ways to entertain ourselves. One of those ways was effing with the local kids. I knew some grove of trees on the path up to the local golf course that used to have a house in it, as well as some still standing garages and sheds. We made up some monster that lived out there and got the younger kids to believe it, and it ended up keeping them out of trouble for a few weeks to boot. After this, things got weird. Beyond the prior events, we periodically go out to this grove and explore a bit, find old oil cans and stuff just to pass the time. Well, one night we decided to go out there, and just walking into the entrance gave us chills, and the air grew very cold after. Twigs were snapping, cans were flying from the sheds, and we'd catch a glimpse here or there of something out there with us, something that obviously didn't want us there. My best description I can come up with is a creature roughly 7 to 8 feet tall, biped, but can run on all fours and is stark white. A few of the times we go out there after the initial run-in ended with us sprinting down the path to get back to a streetlight. Once something seemed to be standing on the tops of the trees. A friend started yelling things at it, and when he turned back to look at me for a second, it seemed to have moved from where it was standing all the way across the grove to right next to us. Fast little fucker, isn't it? That was my own word thing in there. That wasn't part of the story. Another ended very quickly when we were walking into the grove and heard a loud snort like a wild boar, where something was right next to us. But this was West Central Minnesota, and I'd loved in this town. I lived in this town for 20 years. Only thing I've seen close to a boar is pigs that got brought from miles away at the county fair. The last quote unquote encounter was towards the end of winter. Still some snow on the ground in the middle of the day, and we'd head out to look. All of us grouped up to watch from different directions, and nothing really interesting happens. On our way back out, there's a footprint in the snow that dwarfed my size 13 wide shoes. I'm also 13 wide, so I know how big of a shoe that is. It had a rounded heel and 3 rounded toes, almost looking like a cartoon bear paw. But again, nothing like that in our area, and definitely something we would have seen or heard. Since then, I've run across something tall and white occasionally, usually standing on the edge of a group of trees. Sometimes, whenever it seems to just be watching me, other times I feel much more terrified, like I need to run as far away as I possibly can. I haven't seen it for a few years, but an Asked Reddit thread I came across about a half hour ago had a comment linking this sub, and it seemed all too coincidental. Hell, the bottom 2 green marks on that map in the sticky, I don't know what that means, I'm sure that's a Reddit thing, are pretty much right where I am in Minnesota. So something's out there. I mean, I can't imagine that it would travel, like it would migrate away.
No.
Like it's going to have a territory.
I agree with you. Right. It's going to establish its grounds, and it's going to have a space where its domain is. Right. I would agree.
Yeah.
I think kind of like Bigfoot, there's a reason why if you go to the Pacific Northwest, you have a better chance of observing a Bigfoot than you do, say, in
New York City?
New York City or Nebraska or Alabama, right? Or a number of states, right? I think that there's a reason why that there's a better chance that you have of observing something like out of the ordinary up in that location. And I think that's because that whatever Bigfoot truly is, that is what it has chosen to be its primary home base. I think it's really interesting. So I'm thinking when you said West Central, I'm thinking for some reason I can't get Alexandria out of my mind. And I've deer hunted up in Alexandria for 20 years and gone through just tons and tons of land and stuff like that, and swamps and lowlands. It's phenomenal deer hunting country, but I've never experienced anything there that I would consider to be paranormal ever. So I wonder where this West Central location is. I wish they would have given a town, when it's, I lived in this town for 20 years. I wish they would have said what town they were in that story, because for me, that's West Central to me is Alexandria. So I'm thinking it's somewhere around there, probably.
Sauk Center.
Yeah. Sauk Center, New York Mills. I don't know. Somewhere in that general vicinity. Fergus Falls is not that far from there. DL's a little farther up north. But I would be very interested to see where they were witnessing that thing at, and see if that was its home turf, and then maybe take a road trip up there for a weekend and maybe get lucky. I mean, who knows? But if they haven't seen it for years, like I haven't seen it for a couple of years, did you say in that story? Right? So then I wonder if it is something that's extraterrestrial, maybe it was an observational type of thing, like we talked about with Cena, right? And then maybe that was a set time frame. Go there for 10 years. Go there for 5 Earth years, 10 Earth years. Go there, observe what you can observe, report back to us, tell us what is going on, and then it was done. Maybe they'll never see that thing there again. I just don't think you get a 9 foot tall, translucent white, skinny, pale. I don't know. You know what that really sounds like to me? Honestly, it sounds kind of like the thing from Stranger Things. Right? I mean, you've seen Stranger Things, right?
I have, yes.
Right. So like and I forget
What
what
is
they call them, but it's the thing with the head that goes, "Bleh!" and it pops open into 4 pieces. But it's like this really sickly, white, gangly, thin, tall ass 7-8 foot tall thing. That kind of sounds like that to me. And I can't get that image out of my head. I mean, I looked and 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 I could not find a single photo of something like this. So other than like an artist rendition or somebody sketched something or whatever, if everybody's having these sightings, why don't we have even a blurry picture of it? Like we have some great footage, I think, in my opinion. We have some great footage of what we consider to be Bigfoot. I think there's some phenomenal footage out there. I think there is also some phenomenal, it probably is Bigfoot, but you didn't get it in crystal clear footage. But because of the story, the location, the timing, the incident, the personal witnesses, I think that probably is something. I think that's probably something. Even though I can't go, oh my God, yes, I see it. But I still think that's something. Why is there not? I couldn't find a single picture of this. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is, why don't we have a picture of it, even if it's a blurry picture of something that resembles what we're talking about?
Yeah, Brendan, you said that you looked at it for 2 to 3 minutes.
If you got 3 minutes to look at it, why is your phone not out?
Yeah. I mean, I know you're terrified and maybe the flash would get him to kill you, but you know what? Take one for the team.
I'm not implying that, but I'm kind of on the same page as Mike, right?
Nice.
So
I don't agree with him, but I kind of agree with him.
I'm kind of agreeing with him, right? So, but I mean, if people are witnessing a new species of being, let's see some pictures.
The one photo that I have seen is a stock image that has been used for like 4 different cryptids. I
dismissed it too.
Yeah, and it was that same photo was used for this cryptid called the Rake, which I know Cameron, an investigator on my team, says even if you think about it, that makes you a target for it. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. No. but it was the same image they used to be the Rake.
Right.
And yes, spelled exactly as you would a garden rake.
Rake. R-A-K-E. Yep. That'd be the same thing as saying as if you thought about Lucifer for a moment, that Satan would show up and like possess you. No. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah. Terry? No.
Terry's just freaked out from the movie 315. The beauty part is, like, one of these days I'm going to do the 215 text, boom, or like, oh my God, and it's 315 her time. So, then she's going to like hate me for months.
Yeah, but now you like completely gave it away.
She already knows that because I already told her I was going to do it. And she's like, you better not. Don't text me at 3:15. Okay. I texted her once at 3:14, and I got a text back. I kid you not, like within a half an hour. You're so lucky that wasn't at 3:15. And I intentionally did it because I was up at 2:4. It was like 2:14, and I intentionally sent her a message. And she's like, "Oh, you're so lucky that wasn't at 3:15." I know. I feel lucky. But let's see some pictures of this thing. I don't think it's a Wendigo. I'm just going to go on record and say that I don't think it's a Wendigo. I think that a Wendigo to me is more of what traditional Native American images of a Wendigo is something with horns, something that's a predator, something that's dark, something that is bloodthirsty. That mentality. I'll just leave it at that. So that image right there is plenty to grasp onto. Now you've got this scared, translucent, large, I don't want to say grotesque, but abnormally shaped figure that can go from 7 to 9 foot tall down to all fours and run quickly. And if you flash your light on it, it has extremely reflective eyes and it scampers off. It runs from you when you see it. I can't put those two things in the same category. I can't put those things together. So whatever this thing is, this skin pale crawler thing, it's either something new that showed up as an extraterrestrial life form type of thing, or it's just something that has recently come to the surface or broke into our dimension, I guess, for lack of a. And when I say come to our surface, in my mind, I think of moving up from underground. In reality, that would not be the case. It would be multiple layers of dimensions side by side coming through this way, and then being in our world, not it no longer in their world.
I just wanted to throw in one other thing, because you said that they run off or scamper off or whatever. Right. When you get, they also just stare. A lot of these stories are just stared at us.
Okay. I mean, would that intimidate you? It wouldn't intimidate me. It'd be like staring at a deer, right? I mean, I look at a deer's eyes in the woods when I'm walking out after bow hunting, and I got my flashlight following my little tiny trail that I need to kind of understand where I'm at to get out of the woods. I shine my light. There's a deer. I wouldn't want to see a bear. Obviously I'm in his domain. I don't want to get into a fight with a bear. But if I see a deer, I shine, or I see a couple of raccoons, or I see a possum, or whatever other wildlife might be around, I'm not intimidated by it.
Well, right.
I don't know that I'd be intimidated by this pale. I'd be interested. I'd be curious as hell. Like, what the hell am I looking at? Like, holy shit, if whoever's with me, get your ass up here and look at what I'm looking at. Because we need to experience this together so we can understand what it is that we're seeing. But I wouldn't be intimidated by that. It wouldn't scare me.
No, and I didn't say that in order to be like it's trying to intimidate you. It's just that the two stories that have already been read both just had it just staring at them.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to jump into my story then. All right.
Yep. Chanhassen.
So Chanhassen. So, okay. Back in 2017, I used to live with my aunt in Minnesota. And while living with her, I had worked at the nearby Walgreens, which was about a 35 to 40-minute bike ride from her place. This event happened early in October. But one night, I had worked a closing shift, but we didn't close and leave till around 30 to 40 minutes longer than what we used to do due to lots of work needing to be done. I biked to and from works. So as someone who believes in the paranormal stuff, 100% biking home at night was always an eerie thing to do because my mind would often go wild. Now, the route I take to go home is a somewhat isolated one. I have to go past a park and a lot of wooded areas, and it's barely lit up as there aren't many streetlights or houses for most of that route. I had just gotten to the park area where it's more natural and woodsy, and I was taking on an EX on the phone, or my ex, sorry. I was talking to my ex on the phone. My ex on the phone, which was currently my girlfriend at the time, as a way to ease my nerves on the way home. I had briefly looked down at my phone when I heard a weird screeching sound, which caused me to look up. To my horror, there was this large, tall, deathly frail-looking humanoid creature that looked very white and pale, almost as if it was sickly. Before I could really get a good look at it, it dropped onto all fours and leapt into the wooded area. Seeing this, I panicked and began to pedal as fast as I could. Meanwhile, I could hear this thing taking chase, but remaining hidden in the woods. I could hear branches constantly snapping, leaves crunching. This thing was in pursuit. I got about halfway through the route to a point where nature stops, being trees and woods, and opened up into a rolling hill sort of thing, just flat grass, but a bunch of hills. As soon as I got to this point, I heard the thing stop chasing me and complete silence. That's when I noticed a very peculiar scent, blueberry pie, which has really weirded me out because there are no households, restaurants, or buildings of any kind around this area. So for the scent of a freshly baked blueberry pie, my favorite pie, seemed really sketchy. I paid no attention to it, as to me, it was coming from the distant hills, as if this thing was somehow creating the scent to draw me away from the sidewalk and towards it. So I kept pedaling and eventually made it to where the townhomes were and eventually back home to safety, which, yes, I did throw my bike into the garage and run inside and up to my bedroom like a frightened child and turn on the light and TV. Now, it doesn't end there. A few days later on Halloween, when I started forgetting about the thing I saw, I spent the day handing out candy for my aunt and watching TV/YouTube until it was time to retire to the bedroom. Shortly after I had gotten to my room, I again heard that weird screeching sound, and for some reason, my idiot self decided to check out the window. There was about 40 to 50 feet away from my house. There it was, standing underneath a few trees, was this creature thingy, which made me quickly just close the window and shut the blinds. The next day, surprisingly, my aunt had asked me if I had heard the sound last night and saw the thing as well. I guess from what she had told me, she had heard the noise and wanted to see what it was, and so she took the dog and went into the backyard and had seen the thing standing there then. Almost immediately, it all dropped to all fours and leapt away. Now, when it comes to the size of this thing I'd say it was standing on 2 feet. When it was standing on 2 feet, it was between 7 and 8 foot tall. As a note here, I'm 6'7" pretty tall. So it was quite taller than me. It looked very pale, like it was nothing but skin and bones, yet moved incredibly fast from the speed it had leapt away and pursued me when I was biking home. All right. So that is the story from Chan Hassan. I'm going to say I still feel this way, and I'm still going to stick with it. I don't think that entity, whatever it was chasing this person. I think it was curious. I think it was inquisitive. And so it was following this person on the bike. I think it was following it. I don't think it meant to hurt it in any way, shape, or form. I think it was following it, and when it got to the point where it would have had to expose itself a second time, it decided better against it. It was like, look, you saw me once. I didn't mean for you to see me, which would be totally alien, right? That's totally alien. I never meant for you to see me. I screwed up. Somehow you saw me. Now I'm going to follow you through the woods just to see what you do. I'm just going to kind of run with you while I'm hidden, just watching you. I'm not going to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. I just want to follow you and observe you. Now you got to a point where I can't observe you anymore, because if I do, I have to expose myself a second time. And I'm not going to do that. So our story ends here. Why it showed up in their backyard a couple days later, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. Unless somehow it can follow scent. I have nothing on the blueberry pie other than I also raised my hand, love blueberry pie. But go ahead. I'll leave it there and let you finish with the blueberry pie.
Well, I actually have an explanation for that.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously, it depends on which way this person was traveling. Now, I know Chan Hassan like the back of my hand now.
Okay.
So, if this person it's the park that I'm thinking of, and it's probably a mile and a half from the Walgreens.
Okay.
It's a nice park. There's a lot of trees, so I mean it kind of fits. But you have General Mills, which is right there in that industrial park, and any day of the week, I love it to death. Any day of the week, if you're downwind, it smells of blueberries.
Does it really?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Wow.
I have made the reference many times that even the air is delicious.
Wow.
In Shannon, but it smells very distinctly, completely of like blueberry muffins.
Okay.
Is how I always take it. So but it surprises me that somebody who lives in Chanhassen and would ride that every night would not know that. That's the only thing that gets me, because this is like in every 3-4 days a week. So either he somehow got into a downwind situation that is usually not typical, which is possible. But I smell it pretty much every day. It's amazing. But I'm there every day. So, you know, but there are times when I'm other places in this industrial park, half a mile away or whatever, and if I'm downwind, you can smell it. It smells of like blueberry muffins. So I'm thinking that the smell he got was not from this cryptid.
Well, I don't think it was from the only logical thing in my mind would have been, had there been like wild blueberries growing in the woods and this thing ran through the blueberries and somehow that natural scent, somehow the wind was blowing properly and got to the person on the bike. But yours makes much more sense than mine does.
Yeah. General Mills is right there. And
I didn't know that. So
yeah, well, no, not a lot of people would, especially if you've never been there. Right. You would been to Chanhassen once. Yeah. You would never know. Oh. So which I might say is like a block away from Paisley Park, which is the home of Prince. Just throwing that out there.
Shout out to Prince. Hey, he's one of our hometown boys, man. Phenomenal. He was phenomenal. I'm sorry that he's gone, as we all are.
And he's Paisley Park is one of my customers, so I was there today.
There you go.
So so I mean, I guess in summary, I agree. Even though the description, right, originally made me think that maybe this pale crawler was a Wendigo. I think just the stories and the descriptions separated from that, and just the basic sense of, as you said, you don't get that, the possession, you don't get the anger, you don't get the murderous, you don't get any of that.
No.
I think is probably a little different. Whether the name stays Pale Crawler or somebody comes up with a new name, I have no idea.
Right.
But there's obviously something out there. What it is, no idea. But I don't think that any of these people are crazy or making it up.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so either. I think a lot of the stories we heard tonight they sound legit to me. People having an experience and trying to relate it, and whatever it is, I think if it's not extraterrestrial, it's a new type of cryptid. Which wouldn't be the first in Minnesota, because dogmen shouldn't be here either. But we got the Beast of Bray Road, and we've had a guest on that talked about a legitimate dogman sighting in the St. Croix Valley area. So, we're we're home to some weird, strange things. And we just don't realize it, even though we're too close to it, maybe.
One of these upcoming weeks, I am going to try and get the director of although it's not, I don't know if I think it's a Dogman kind of story, but it's not the Beast of Bray Road, but it's that Boggy
Creek.
Yeah, the Boggy Creek thing. But apparently there's some unbelievable stuff that's been kind of captured and found about that. So
Nice.
and there's a documentary about it. I don't know if it's the Beast of Boggy Creek or whatever the hell it's called, but the director of that has got some amazing stuff. So I'm hoping to get him on here in the coming weeks. But
Nice.
I know that this may be very presumptuous of me, but it doesn't seem like anybody who sees this pale crawler is in any danger.
I would
yeah,
agree.
it's going to be startling.
Well, right.
So, I mean, if you feel the need to run, if you feel the need to be like, scream or whatever,
Right.
have at it. But I honestly don't think that you're in any danger.
No, I think it's a startle moment to me. It's not a fear moment. It's a startle moment.
Yeah.
Is what I feel from the research I've done, stories I've read. I think it's just that shock value type of thing, not I need to fear for my life type of thing.
Exactly. So, all right. That does it for us here this week. Thank everybody for tuning in and listening later on. Thank you, Brendan, for the what I think is your story and just for the topic, because again, neither Dave or I had ever heard of this creature before. And the fact that it's in Minnesota is pretty embarrassing.
Right.
So thank you for that. And again, we'll have you on to actually go over your story one of these days. So,
yep.
All right. Well, we'll be back here next week with another brand new episode. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe,